Welcome to the CEO Pulse podcast. So today we have my dear friend Modesto Lopez with us. Thank you, man. I'm so excited to have you here. We actually did this once before. It didn't quite work out as we thought it would.
Was it your fault or my fault?
it was the universe is just
not with us,
wanting
right?
to meet, have us meet twice.
Yeah.
So no, man, thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me here. Appreciate it too.
My pleasure. So we get to have a lot of conversations on a one-to-one basis, but I think this is going to be a little bit different. And I want to dive quick into a few things. I mean, you've been an entrepreneur for years. You've had the drive pretty much all your life, and I want to tap into that. But I want to just shed light a little bit on your background. So you have a very, very impressive background when it comes to running big projects, big agencies. So you were actually running the brand for Procter Gamble. I mean, at a very young age, and you were in charge of the whole Latin America market, right?
Correct.
So
obviously, once I graduated from ASU, biomedical engineer, I got my first job with Procter Gamble as an engineer, and then I transferred to the business side, and then they sent me over to Central America, and I started managing the Oral-B brand. Once Procter Gamble bought Gillette, we launched the Oral-B toothpaste for South America, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, all those countries. So I had the opportunity of bringing a product from the early stages of a concept all the way to actually putting the product on shelf and doing the pricing strategies and the market launch and all that stuff. And the last piece of my career with them was managing the Oral-B and Crest brand in Mexico as a brand manager, managing the entire country. And that was the fun part, doing commercials and TV stuff. And so I did have that opportunity with them, and there were big projects, and it was fun to learn from the best company. It's one of the best companies in the world.
Yeah,
the
completely
one that
agree.
spends the most money in terms of marketing. So you've had a pretty diverse background. I mean, you come from engineering, biochemical engineering, which it's a pretty stable kind of track, per se. Yeah.
And then you jump right into corporate, after that. So you get to live that whole section of what the corporate world really is. So you've had, at this point, how old were you when you?
I was 23 when I joined Procter Gamble.
So you joined at 23.
23.
And then you got thrown into these big responsibilities at what age?
Well, 23, I was managing. It was more like a project manager, but I would say the biggest responsibilities came when I was 26, 27.
26, 27. So in your mid-20s, man, you have all this responsibility being just stacked on top of you.
Yeah.
And here you go, like, just manage the whole portfolio in this country. So I mean that's impressive on its own. And it's really cool that you obviously transitioned from academics and something that had very little to do. I mean, for what I can see, from my side of the street, but with actually running a business, and then you thrived in that. So you've seen both academics, corporate, and then you moved into your own businesses after that, right?
Yeah. So I always had this. So before I graduated college, I got my real estate license. Right. I was dating this loan officer back in the day, and she was making a lot of money, right? And I was like, "What are you doing?" And she was like, "Oh, I'm doing loans. Why don't you get your license?" And I was like, "What does it take?" "Well, you have to go to school for a couple days. I mean, I don't know, 2-3 weeks." And I was like, "I'll do it." I signed up. So I got my real estate license, and then I got a little bit of taste of what the real estate industry is. That was before the crash, 2007, before the 2008 crash.
So what are we talking about, like 2005, 2006?
It was 2007.
Oh, okay, right at 2007.
At the end of 2006, 2007, I kind of rode that wave where I probably closed anywhere from 10 to 15 deals. I don't remember the exact amount, but it wasn't me that I was doing, I would say, the most pull per se, because she had all the know-how and the knowledge, and I was just kind of managing the real estate transaction because she had the leads per se. but I was like, this is cool. Like, I'm very good at negotiating with other agents. I'm good with, talking to people. And, from my background back then, I was more like a nerd. I was very good with math, with science, and I didn't have that experience in the business world. So when the market crashed, I was like, well, I have my degree. Let's go work. So I went to the corporate world, but I always had this bug in me that I wanted to,
branch out and do your own
do
thing.
something by myself. And I was like, I can either stay here in the corporate world, which I was very successful, and spend the next 20 years and retire after 30 years of work, and say like, well, I can retire with $2-3 million in my IRA and other investments probably, or I can venture out and try something by myself and see how that works. And if something doesn't work, I can go back to the corporate world because I have a very good resume per se. So
you've thrived there before.
Yeah, I can do it again, and I can. Yeah. I think we spoke many times. Like, throw me in China or India, and I'm gonna be successful because that's just the mentality that we have, right? It's more like I'm a hunter, and I know that I can thrive anywhere you throw me in. And
one of the things that we keep bringing up is it's the thrill of the hunt, right? The thrill of the deal and finding that I guess that taste of uncertainty in some stuff. And I think it takes a very particular type of person to want that, and then to be able to thrive in that kind of setting where there's high uncertainty. I think you do it well, though. I mean, we've worked together on multiple projects and stuff, and one-offs in the past, and every single time we go in there not knowing what's going to happen, how it's going to look, and just as it goes,
And that's what brings life to this world, right? At least for me, like, if it was super structured as I had it in the corporate world, or if it was very, linear, I probably wouldn't be as excited as I am right now, because as an entrepreneur, it's more like, hey, I'm here today and I have a direction, I know where I'm aiming, but I don't know exactly the path of how we're going to get there.
Exactly what it looks like, yeah.
And that's what brings a little bit of life to me and the excitement, like.
You said the word linear. I want to say that I understand where you're coming from when you're referring to the path as it being linear. So as an entrepreneur, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my notion is we think in terms of clouds, right? And I mean, that's how I see my thought process being. So I'll get an idea here, I'll get an idea here, I'll get an idea here, and it's all just a big fucking mess in my head. And it's not clarified, it's not not crystal crisp clear, right? And it's not linear by any means. I just know, okay, cool, this thing can happen, and I see it, and it makes perfect sense in my head. When I try to convey it, you have to, I try to do it in a way that's linear, and it's actually explainable, which is it's pretty hard to do when everything we do is in terms of just thoughts and clouds, and then when we're trying to put it into a system or into a process that can be duplicated and somebody else can come in and work it. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have as entrepreneurs. What's your thought on that?
Well, I think that, I agree with you. I think that a lot of what the school system has done for us, whether you're a full academic or not, but all of us have some sort of a school system in us, is to think very linearly. The answer is always on the back of the book, or, make sure you can explain yourself on, what are the steps to get to a certain place. And what the academics doesn't teach us is actually what happens in the real world. Like you said, how many times have we got into a deal where somebody calls me, I call you, and then we have to jump 3 or 4 obstacles, and somehow in a month something happens, and whatever we have to go through, we get it done. Or how many ideas out there of other products that we are not involved in have actually come out of nowhere.
Right.
most of the medicines in the world, like the actual pills or whatever, came out of mistakes. Like obviously the most common one and the one that makes most fun of us is Viagra. Nobody was looking for a pill that will, stimulate the blood flow in our bodies, that we're looking for something else. You know, it wasn't linear. It was a miss and error. You know, and then I was like, oh look, it has a purpose. And actually, most pills, most medicines or pharmaceutical remedies have come out of mistakes. It's the same way as Thomas Edison when he was trying to develop all this, you know, innovation when he did it back in the day. They came out of mistakes. So the notion that we have as humans that things are linear, in my opinion, is very erroneous or not correct, because the actual world is very like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's very non-linear.
It's like, I'm not even sure what the hell is going to happen. So most of our frustrations on our day-to-day basis come from the expectations that we believe that certain things must happen in a linear or
specific order,
common sense way, versus what reality is like, it's a zigzag approach to, hey, you know, get yourself busy and somehow you're gonna get to something. You know, like, I mean, the Bible even talks about that stuff, right? Like, it's like, get your ass moving. It doesn't say it that way, but it's like, get yourself moving, and you know your prayers are gonna be answered. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not gonna be like, oh, God, please help me, and sitting on your
sit on your ass in the couch and not expecting for.
And I'm not sure if the Bible specifically says. What I'm trying to say is like the church, you know, the knowledge that comes from, you know, the faith per se, it has to do with taking action. Actually, they say love is an action word. It's not a being word.
Right.
So my point to the business is like, if we keep moving, if we keep doing something, that zigzag approach of life is going to hit us, and we're going to find those crazy innovations or ideas that nobody thinks about. Right.
Yeah, it's kind of paving the way too, because once you do it, I mean, you do have an idea what comes behind, and then you can create, you know, linear stuff that, you know, you can apply into a process and then build it into a system.
Right.
So I mean, that's super interesting. And the reason I asked you that question is because you do have that engineering brain.
I do have it.
So
it's a constant fight.
Yeah, it's a constant fight. There's always a duality between, you know, the linear thought process, or what what your learned behaviors teach you to do at some point, and then what your instinct, what that hunter in you, is telling you to do.
Right.
And it's that duality between the two of them can be very, very, stressful at times, because I mean, I now speak for myself. I'll be confused, like, no, this is the way this is supposed to work. I shouldn't jump from this step to this step. But one side of me is saying, yeah, this makes sense, and you don't need to spend all this time with, dabbling with this right here. And then the other side, which wants to have everything, process-wise, it's telling me, no, dude. I mean, do the work, take the 1, 2, 3, and eventually you're gonna get to that point.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I think it's a hit and miss. Sometimes, we get to do it in certain scenarios, and then some other scenarios is like, fucking just drive it through the wall,
Absolutely. So I think, knowing you, and I think you have more of an engineering brain sometimes than me, right? Because I see you're very systematic in a lot of ways, and maybe that's not your nature, but you have certainly been able to adapt or learn those traits. Yeah. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, for me, it's a learned behavior. So.
Right, it's a learned behavior. Maybe that's not your nature, but what happens, right, is that we do need that. We do need that piece of the puzzle in order for us to function. What I'm saying is that the other element with which I believe we missed a lot is the adventure piece, the hunter piece, the uncertainty piece, which a lot of people cannot deal with, right? That's why people are freaking out to watching news every morning. Like, there's people that are addicted to news, like on the TV, like, the last time I watch a new channel is like, I don't even know how many years ago. Why? Because if something important is going to happen, I don't need to be stressed about it, right?
Yeah.
There's an element of uncertainty that I'm willing to live with. I don't need to have this notion of control about the outer world in order for me to function. And so that's where my comment comes, like that there's a balance in how to flow through life. Like I think Bruce Lee said it, be like water.
Be like water, my friend.
Flow, one day you can be ice, the other day you can be vapor, the other day you can be water. You can go upstream or downstream to a river, or you can fit into a cup or not. I think that what we have lost, or what we haven't learned maybe, is that as humans we just have to be super adaptive to a lot of things, to everything that comes our ways.
Yes, but I mean, especially the way our economy moves. I mean, one day you have health economy wise, and everybody's doing well, and then the next thing you see stocks kind of dipping. What happens the week after that? They recover. So I mean, it's a very volatile place to operate. I mean, we have innovation and growth in different industries. Dude, almost on a weekly basis. Like, new shit comes up every single time. You buy a phone, and then 3 months later, that phone that you bought for $1,000 is obsolete.
Absolutely.
And I think having the ability to adapt and kind of forecast all that stuff doesn't really come if you stick to the linear way of thinking. If you stick to the linear way of processing and really just fix your mind around that stuff. So I mean, I think a really good advice for entrepreneurs out there would be to embrace curiosity and the what if.
I think that for me as an entrepreneur now, that I consider myself an entrepreneur now because I jump into this world, right?
You are, yeah.
3 years ago or so, and I jumped having all this background, and I wanted to apply all this linear thinking to what I do, which it helped, but there's this level of uncertainty that we all have to be able to live with. Sometimes when you have a team or you have a staff, if you don't have business coming in, you're stressing about how you're going to pay them,
right.
how you're going to cover.
Yeah.
And when I was in the corporate world, it's like, I know I'm going to get my check whether I take the day off or not. My check is my $5,000 are going to show up into the bank account or whatever your salary was. So, if as an entrepreneur, there is this. I think that social media and a lot of people like Gary Vee and Darren Hardy and even back in the day, Zig Ziglar, what they did to the salesman or the entrepreneur was they were able to market it as a hero or something that was an idea, a concept, and something that most people wanted to become. And there's there's an element of like something cool, right? Mm-hmm. What a lot of people don't talk about is the actual struggles, right?
Yeah.
The roller coaster of entrepreneurship and the actual the small percentage of businesses that actually succeed. Mm-hmm. The statistic in restaurants is like, out of every 10 restaurants that open, in a 5-year span, only one make it. Out of those ones, out of that 1% that make it, out of those 10, only 1% make it in the next 5 years. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's restaurants, right? Now talk about our business, right?
Yeah, which is highly, highly competitive.
Right. And then they even say, like, in the real estate or lending world, 7 years from now, we don't know what it's going to look like with all the virtual reality stuff that is happening with all the technology. So what I'm trying to say is, like, entrepreneurship, it's definitely a very rewarding path, but you have to have a mentality of like, I'm gonna freaking go kill and hunt, and no matter what happens, I'm just gonna get through it. And if you don't have that mentality, and if you're into like trying to find certainty or comfort,
it's the wrong place.
It's the wrong place. So you might as well go to McDonald's and work 7 hours and 8 hours and be happy. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that, because we need those people. But these guys right here, us that are actually on this side of the field, right. Hey, we know sometimes. I mean, how many weeks have you been where you don't close a deal?
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. It's like it is what it is.
Part of the nature.
But is that going to get you down?
No.
It might be sad for 2-3 hours, or upset or frustrating, but you're like, I gotta keep going.
Yeah.
In order to do this stuff, which what we're doing right now, to be able to teach and send back the information of the people that are actually here. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So that's just the reality of this, is because it will be easy for you and me to be working for somebody else, right? I'm sure we're gonna be getting a salary of like $150,000, $200,000 a year doing something, right? Because we have that expertise. You're a master's in psychology. You're a freaking expert in social dynamics. you have the background of a previous business, like you think that a company is not going to hire that? Absolutely.
I think it's also one of the things that happens almost by default. Whenever you jump into entrepreneurship, you have no safety net, right? So there's nothing there to, like, for example, at least it's been one of the things in my that's to a degree pushed my drive. All right, saying fuck it, I'm gonna jump in, take the leap, and then start taking chances on your own. But what happens when you look back? I mean, there's nobody there to catch you. I mean, you just jumped off the cliff. And you're just kind of hoping that your wings kind of grow as you're,
and they
falling.
grow, right?
Yeah, the better. So for the and whenever they don't, people usually go back to something that they already know in the past. I mean, they'll just return, back to the previous 9 to 5 or something. I mean, people in states of stress will always go back to whatever they know, right?
Right.
But it's if you stick with it long enough, you're gonna grow wings. You're gonna learn how to do stuff that you had no idea. I mean, if it's it's all part of the risk. Now, what happens? Two things happen. So your experience grows as you're getting through the highs and the lows. Your the cushion that you can fall back into in the event of an emergency, meaning your history also gets developed. I mean, there's no way I would be able to have everything that I have on my resume. I mean, not that I need that I use a resume, but I wouldn't have any of that stuff if I hadn't been an entrepreneur first.
Absolutely.
So once you jump in, you just start piling shit on top of you. Why? Because you need to, and it makes you a better person. I think it connects on every aspect. Anywhere from professional growth to personal growth to contribution to just being an overall better person.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I fully agree with that. A lot of the questions that I get often are, what is the right way? What should I do after college? What should I do now? How should I think about my business? Even, the agents that come into our team. I'm the owner of, I'm part owner of the Barraza team, which is a top producing team in the in Phoenix. We're number 16 in Phoenix, actually, which is not a small feat. Number 16 in units is like, oh my God. We're doing something cool, right? You're
doing a lot with a very efficient,
Yeah, and it's only group of 4 people, right? And the main staff. Exactly. This is not the team. This is only the core. Anyways, right. I'm not saying that to brag. What I'm saying is, like, even the agents that come into the team, they're wanting to find the secret sauce, or what's the way to do it. And I'm very sarcastic in a way. I'm like, I can tell when someone is really gonna be able to make it, right? Because I see myself in a lot of people. It's like, bro, it doesn't matter how much time I spend on you. Like, honestly, like, if you don't have that drive, those intangibles, most people are not gonna make it, and they're gonna close 2 or 3 deals a year, which is the average. What is the statistic in Maricopa? Yeah. 2 or 3 or 4 deals a year, the average agent, right?
Exactly.
And that is what, $30,000-$40,000 at best, $40,000 a year, right? I'm not in that. I'm not trying to be that person. I'm trying to go way above that. So the people that come and ask us or joins our team and want to know the special secret or sauce is like, you just have to work.
You just got to do it.
You just got to do it. Get up, start calling, start showing houses, and start talking to people. Every opportunity you go, every time you go to McDonald's, to a restaurant, to Starbucks, to the coffee shop, talk to 1 or 2 individuals that you meet there, because you're a salesman. You're a freaking salesman.
Yeah, at the end of the day.
And a lot of people don't get it. It's like,
right.
So you have to have that element of, and every individual that I touch, everything that I see can come or be a business. So you start thinking about yourself and what you're trying to accomplish differently when you have that mentality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you become receptive to opportunities too.
Yeah. How many deals have you gotten out of nowhere? Like the other day I got a deal with an Uber driver.
Right.
The other day I was, almost a year ago, I was eating a soup at a Chinese restaurant, and the guy next to me heard my conversation. Like, oh, you help sell a house? Yeah, I do. Let me help you out. So is that mentality of like, if you don't have that hunger, it's no matter what I tell you, no matter how many books I'm gonna present to you guys, no matter how many podcasts you hear, no matter how many audio books, like, it's not gonna happen. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be pessimistic. that's just what my data, in my experience, in my world, which is limited, have shown me.
Right.
Right? Maybe I haven't lived in other worlds, but in my world, from both academics to corporate to entrepreneurship, if you don't have it, you don't have it. In the corporate world where I was very successful and I got promoted super fast, the reason why I was successful is because I had this rebelness to me, like, I'm going to go kill it. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to follow the rules 100%. I'm going to find my way to do it. And that's the people that become successful. You think Trump became president because he followed rules? We know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Kennedy became president because he followed rules. We know the answer to that. Like, and I'll just mention names because we know the names, but I'm saying, like, there's that level of intensity and craziness and passion that we all have to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I mean, there's got to be that human side that's still alive, and it's not expecting everything to be linear. Entrepreneurship is not linear.
It's not linear.
The behaviors that we as entrepreneurs take they're definitely not linear. The risks are not linear.
Never.
The opportunities are never fucking linear. So you can't expect one opportunity just to open up because something previous to it. I mean, they don't happen that way. So you have to be able to pick them up, as you go, as you learn, as you grow, both an entrepreneur and a person. So. No, that's awesome, and yeah, you're running one of the most successful teams right now in Maricopa County, and that's a really, really big thing. So you're doing a lot with a small team, and the results, I mean, speak for themselves. So
numbers don't lie, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And with that being said, what would you say that your superpower is as an entrepreneur?
My superpower is this mentality or mindset of, like, throw me anywhere. Send me anywhere, send me any obstacle, and I'm going to find a way to do it, like solve it or get it done. And I don't say that lightly, it's not something that I decided to have just from one day to the other. Something that I have proved myself, through many experiences. And, as friends and, almost as brothers, I will say, like, we talk often about this, which is like, it's this.
I wish we could record every single conversation that we have and make just a compilation of it.
It is, but it's like this idea that I can accomplish whatever the heck I want to accomplish, and that's a superpower, which is a mindset of, like, throw me anywhere. And let me respond to that with a story, or with an actual scenario. When there's no problems, when there's nothing to be solved, are you excited?
No, I'm trying to find new shit.
If
you ask me, I'm trying to find new things, and to me, it means that I'm not playing a big enough game.
And when there's no enemies or nothing to go kill or punch, are you excited?
Yeah,
that's the answer, right?
Of life.
So that's my superpower. Like, that's, to me, every day is like, hey, what's going on? Let's get it done. Let's go do it. Or what's the next obstacle? What is the next thing that we need to go do? And that's it. There's no magic to this. It's the idea of keeping constant movement and constant flow, constant work, and knowing that there's no such a thing as a destination. From the moment that we were born to the moment that we are gonna die, there's no such a thing as a destination. It's just a journey. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions that the world has tried to impose on us is, like, go to school for 18 years, then work for 30 years, you're going to get retired, and then once you retire, you're going to go enjoy life. F that. It doesn't work like that. I take my mini retirements every month, right?
Yeah.
Like, I go take a 2-3 week vacation to wherever the heck I want, or not, or I wait the other 2 months and I do my, why? Because that's the flow of life. It's not how we were told it's gonna be. Like, the day that we understand as humans that everything that we have heard, seen, tasted, felt is just an idea that someone else brought us into, the day that we understand that, shit, my ideas are going to become real, because one day somebody said like, you know what? Why don't I record myself and see if somebody listens to my stories?
Yeah.
How many podcasts do we have right now in the U.S., in the U.S. alone? And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, right? So what's the next new thing that's going to come up? We don't know.
Well, everything, like, and I mean, we can use podcasts, we can use, blogs, we can use
Vehicles,
whatever,
yeah.
different vehicles, but everything has a different perspective, to make, it may be repetitive concepts, but everybody's going to see it in a different light.
Absolutely.
And
And it's
for
needed.
example, your style may resonate a lot, with a certain type of people, and somebody else may have the same information, and it's going to resonate, with different type of people. So it's just different ways of getting, at the end of the day, to some of the same basic principles that allow us to live that life and have, that degree of freedom. For example, taking action and talking to people and actually looking at opportunities and deals as we go. None of that is reinventing the wheel in entrepreneurship, yet it's shit that we don't do on a, and when I say we, I mean, I always speak for myself. Disclaimer for future podcasts. But it's, I mean, I drop the ball on that stuff all the time.
And I fully agree. And so I just read an article, super interesting, and it went something like, in today's world, which is abundant of information. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
So it's abundant of audiobooks, books, podcasts, seminars, people online selling trainings, coaches, mentors. In this world of an overload of information, of experts, of people that are trying to show you the secret of success or the way to make money, we might want to consider picking one book, one podcast, one idea, and reading it over and over again 1,000 times until you get that idea done.
Mm-hmm.
Versus doing what I've done many times. Let me listen to the 100 audiobooks that I have on my, Audible. What is the next podcast that I need to listen to, because obviously something I'm missing, something else is there that I'm missing. So I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm not saying that's the answer for everybody. What I'm saying is, like, I think there needs to be some sort of a balance of where every single individual finds that, what works best for us, to listen to 100 audiobooks or to listen to one audiobook 100 times. I don't know the answer to that. But I'm going to refer to Bruce Lee again. He was asked, like, is it better to practice one kick 1,000 times or to learn 1,000 things? What was his answer? He said,
repetition, yeah.
One kick 1,000 times. So repetition is the mother of all skills. And I think what in the world that we live right now, we have missed that. We are more into, like, whatever comes, what's the next thing, what doesn't, because, the life of a cell phone is like 3 or 4 months. 6 months, of a cell phone nowadays.
Yeah.
Boom. And they're like the best computer in the world. The new iPhone Pro 11, in 6 months, there's going to be a better one coming in.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree. Let me build on that a little bit. So you're talking about basic principles and doing some of that stuff over and over again. I agree. I do agree, because historically the stuff that's worked for me, the stuff that's worked for my businesses, has always been going back to the basics stuff.
Yep.
You can build from that and get fancy and get creative, but at the end of the day, when you move everything out of the way, all the jargon, all the distractions, you end up with basic principles. So if I'm a huge believer that if you do those things right, you're going to end up with a good base. What do you think are, and I don't know if you want to give me three, but are 3 basic solid principles for an entrepreneur?
I think, well, the first one that I will say is, like, and I don't mean to sound cliche, but you need to understand your why, and to be more specific, like, your why needs to be tied into something that really bring some emotion to yourself, like to, you know, I didn't know what my why was until like, you know, in my 30s, but I wasn't able to articulate my why. But my why has always been like being able to help my family, and not only my mom or my sisters, but it was like this idea that I want my family to be proud of me, and I want to be kind of like their savior in a way, which is might sound a little, you know, weird, but that was my why.
No, it's actually one of the ways to provide or show
So,
love and affection, which is
Yeah, so my
being
why
a
has
provider.
always been like that thing, like, and so everything that I done has always been that. It has been a huge driver, and the reason why I say that is because, you know, you hear other people like, my why is to save the world, my why is to, you know, cure, you know, cancer or AIDS, or, you know, eliminate hunger, which is amazing. We need those individuals in the world. What I'm saying is like, maybe not every single human has those crazy, uh, broad whys, but an entrepreneur has to have a why, right? The reason of why they're doing things, and if it's tied to money, I'm I'm afraid that's not gonna be a big drive.
Yeah, well, you hit it, and then you kind of
Yeah, because, you know, a little money or a big money can distract you and not really take you there. So that's the first one. The second one, I think that entrepreneur needs to find really a model or a person they really wanna, that they admire. Then they have to have someone to look up to. Um, you know, even Elon Musk. You know, he talks about how, you know, I think of Elon Musk as probably one of the smartest, more adventurous, crazy motherfuckers out there. You know, like,
I agree.
and I hope that nobody kills him one day. You know, because he's making a lot of big corporations. You know,
He's making a dent.
he's making a dent
He's
and
making a dent in
going
the world
towards
for the good.
against the freaking flow. But his models, aside from his family, were astronauts, people that were, you know, trying to find different worlds, these crazy, you know, innovative minds. And he's like, I want to be like them. You know, I want to, you know, Iron Man was based out of, you know, one of the actual inspirations was him for the Iron Man movie. You know that, right? And so is this idea of like, we all need to have that. Who are we gonna follow? Who do we want to be? And that person needs to bring that level of emotion to us that brings that second level of drive. And the third one for me is like, we need to be surrounded by either, you know, an outer energy, whether you're religious or believe in faith or grace or gratitude, whatever you want to call it, or be surrounded by a lot of family. You need a support system, right? So a lot of entrepreneurs fail because after 2-3 years they didn't have a support system, because you're gonna run out of money, you're gonna run out of ideas, you're gonna run out of motivation, you're gonna run out of energy, and your support system is the only thing that's gonna pick you up. So you need to have a clear why. You need to know exactly who you're trying to model, and you better have a strong support system, whether it's a spiritual support system, which can be very, very abundant, or your family or circle that really gets your back. And yes, to add the last thing, in this support system, you have to have at least one individual that believes in you, one that tells you you're going places. You need one motherfucker that's gonna tell you that, because if you don't have it, bro,
It's not. I mean, at the end, it's not really a support system.
and one of those guys or individuals in your life needs to be able to tell you you're going places, whether it's the wife, the girlfriend, the cousin, the sister. We all need that. Whether Elon Musk has that, you know, Bill Gates had it, Jeff Bezos had that person that told him, you're gonna go places, bro, keep going. because as smart as or as powerful as we think we are, we need to have those individuals.
I agree, man. And I've talked about this before. It gets really dark sometimes, and fuck. I mean, there's not a lot of places to turn, but if you do have, if you have the awareness that you need to get out of your head as an entrepreneur, and as any person psychologically, staying inside your head is one of the most fucking dangerous things that you can do. Why? Because it's gonna build on bad ideas if you're already on that track, right? But if you don't have some way, somehow, to get out of your head and bounce off different perspectives, or just refresh and reboot and, you know, do something a little different where you can vent, that like everything else is just gonna keep weighing you down. It's huge. It's huge. I agree.
No, I fully agree.
Thanks for that, man. Those are three very, very solid principles.
And there might be 20, right?
There might be
1,000.
Absolutely.
But what I'm saying is, those are, to me, the why, who you're looking for, who you want to model, and a support system they're needed in a.
What I picked up from that is that they all tie back into the emotion.
Yeah.
They all tie back into the fire of entrepreneurship, into that spark that wakes your ass up in the morning and say, "Fucker, let's go. Let's do this. Let's get shit done. What are we gonna get done? I have no idea, but let's do it."
And I think that's the most powerful thing, right? And I don't mean emotions. It's 100% who we are. We're nothing but a combinations of emotions every day. Mm-hmm. Right? I read the book, The Untethered Soul.
Untethered Soul, yeah.
Untethered Soul. And it said it talks a lot about emotions and how we are 100% emotions.
Right.
Right? And I remember a story that went something like, have you ever been heartbroken? You know, and the author talks about, you know, being heartbroken. And it's like, you know, when someone is heartbroken, they want to sleep in, they don't want to talk to anybody for at least a day, 2, 3 days, a week, a month, I don't know, depends on the individual, but at least there's a period in the life of the heartbroken individual where they are not doing anything.
Right.
And heartbroken, I don't mean just by being romantically heartbroken, right? Because you can be heartbroken for many things. The business went to crap, or you lost someone, or meaning there's a pain in our emotions. But the heartbroken individual has a period in their life after that incident where they're like, there's nothing here that I'm going to do. I'm taking a break. Mm-hmm. I'm not moving. It's a depression moment. I'm not talking about clinical depression. It's just like,
yeah, you're feeling loud, you're feeling low, down.
But let's say that you were heartbroken because somebody, your girlfriend or husband or whatever, it was a romantical heartbreak. What happens to the individual when they hear that other person come back and call them? The book talks about, hey, I was thinking about you. I want to see you again. What happens to the guy that's receiving that message after all the emotions come back? Mm-hmm. Clinically, that guy is going to get up, take a shower, boom, let's go. What's going on?
Revive.
And what does that tell you about us? That we are 100% emotions, right? Mm-hmm. It's like maybe in the same scenario, like you thought that you lost your business, but for some reason someone calls you and you're like, you know what? That contract that we thought you lost, it was a mistake, which has happened many times. Really?
180s, absolutely.
And it wasn't because you were having a bad day. It's like, your emotions, we are 100% emotions. And so the biggest coaches or the most successful coaches or the coaches that I admire are not the ones that tell me a plan. And I spend thousands of dollars in trainings and books and seminars, and I'm a huge fan of Anthony Robbins. You know that. Actually, we went together to a seminar. He never talks about plans. And I'm not saying he's the best, and I'm not saying that everybody should follow him. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, like, the reason why I admire that guy is because he knows, or at least for me, he knows that I'm 100% emotions, and I don't need a plan. You can come up
with that on your own.
Help me with my emotions. You know what I'm saying? Like, help me deal with my emotions. because I'm 100% emotions, and I know you are, and I know all the people that are here are 100% emotions. Whether we want to think of it or not, that's who we are as humans.
Right. Yeah. At the end of the day, that's the fuel that drives
And
us.
entrepreneurship is nothing but emotions.
Oh man, and it's a lot of emotions on a single day.
How
I
many-
mean,
yeah.
people, out in the regular world, people may have a high moment 1 week and then a low moment, 2 weeks after that, and then kind of, fluctuate between the two. If it's not, relationship related, right? But entrepreneurship, man, you wake up at 7 and then you might be flying high. 7:15, you're fuck. 11 rolls around and you're huffing and puffing. 3 p.m. comes over and then you're way on cloud 9 again, and it's just like that. It's a roller coaster of emotions on a daily basis. But it's you're completely right, man. I love it. Find a why that's strong enough to keep that light, that fire, and those emotions going for you, and you're gonna be able to just get shit done as an entrepreneur. And I think it also goes hand in hand with being able to endure the risks that we have to take on a daily basis to provide for employees, to provide for the company, to get new opportunities in. I mean, that all comes down to emotional intelligence. So I love it. I want to pick your brain because you do have a very, very solid background in marketing. So I want to kind of go back into a little bit of the actual tangibles of business. You were managing a huge brand in the corporate world. I mean, obviously you learned, you grew, and you experienced a lot of the stuff that the average person doesn't get to. If somebody was tapping into a new market or tapping into a new product and bringing it up to market, what advice could you give that person? How do they take it from point A to point sold and I got paid?
So it's a very loaded.
It's
question.
a very loaded question. Yeah.
Yeah, but I tell you, the principles that Procter Gamble follows,
Okay.
right? And there's no rocket science in here. They're quite simple. Simple. You need to identify in whatever market, whatever you're doing, the gap or what's missing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what are the things that you can do better in whatever you're doing, When we launch Oral-B toothpaste in Latin America, Colgate dominated the older segment of the population, the grandmas, the moms of the world, or the region, if you want to call it that way. And we came with an identity. We identified that there was an identity that was missing for more of the millennials, if you want to call it that way, back then, or the young professionals. And we were going to position Oral-B as the toothpaste for that segment, right? Mm-hmm. So you need to identify the gap of what really is missing. The first element, and that applies to every single product that you want to do. The second thing is once you identify that, you need to develop what are you going to do, who you're going to become, what is your brand identity. And I already told you the brand identity was being that young professional or the young dentist that was going to talk to those individuals. I wasn't interested in the grandma or the moms. I was interested more on the younger.
You have to become relatable to your avatar.
So in any product, you need to, every product you have your own brand. I have my own brand. You, Rafael Cortez, you're a brand, and actually you're working on it, it's developing through visuals, but you already have a brand. Every time you present yourself to a client, to a customer, to a colleague, to me, to anybody, it's the same with me. So you need to identify it and develop that brand, right? Then once you launch that product, you go out into the market, you need to be adaptable, right? Because nothing ever hits in a straight line, right? We don't know if the Tesla truck is going to be successful. Once it actually comes out, it is successful because I don't know how many billions of dollars of orders they got. I think they say 2 billion already, which I'm not even sure if that's the right number. But we don't know if that truck is going to be successful once it actually hits the road.
Right.
The same with the toothpaste, the same with you, the same. So let's say that CO pulls, can become better or anything can be improved. you need to be adaptable on the third phase, which is like you hit it, you test it, you're like the 3-6 months, like, are people buying it? Are people doing it? What am I missing? What do I need to tweak on my brand in order to continue to evolve it and make sure that my competition it's actually getting hit by me, or they actually noticing who I am, right?
Yeah, you have a brand growth.
You have some
recognition,
a level of top of mind awareness, brand recognition, and then the competition starts recognizing who you are. And the fourth element is more like staying consistent to who you develop over here for a long period of time. Because what happens to a lot of companies or a lot of marketing is that after a certain amount of time, they're like, oh, let's change the message, let's change the concept, because they want to bring that level of innovation, when the answer has always been like, no, stay consistent on who you develop here. Don't get too crazy outside what actually has worked. So is this idea of always identifying where the gap is, identifying who you're going to be targeting to, develop your brand identity, your brand equity, and understanding, what are your qualities, what are your differences versus the competition, and just making sure you stay 100% consistent on that going forward.
Flexible as well as you.
Yeah, it's being flexible once you launch and then consistent.
I love it, man. Again, this is a huge. It's one of the powerhouse brands in the world, or companies in the world, and we have insider access right now to how they operate, and it's very, very basic principles. I see it time and time again when companies and businesses and individuals, and I've done it in the past as well, want to overcomplicate shit too much. And you know what? I need to tweak this way. And what's the next best thing? It's going back to some level of basic principles. It's always going to be a good thing for what I can see. Now, you mentioned innovation. I think innovation it's something that no company is sustainable without. However, you made a clear emphasis on the brand, right? So you don't necessarily want to innovate that relativeness that people have to you already. That may evolve, but not scratch it out and start from the ground up. But innovating on products and on solutions it's a whole different thing.
Yeah, let me ask you, what is a brand that you love out there, or you use every day, or something, whether it's on the house or a personal product, a brand that you love? Tell me whatever comes to mind. Yes.
Favorite brand of clothes, H&M.
H&M,
Yeah.
cool. I don't know much about H&M, so. You threw me a curveball, but let me ask you something. Does H&M for you, do they always have that product or whatever feel you're looking for when you go to the store or when you buy it online? Do they stay consistent with whatever is it that you're familiar with?
Yeah, that's man, you're hitting it right on the head. It's one of the things. It's actually the reason why I love the brand. It's not a big, expensive brand. I'm not a brand guy, but I like the product and the problem that they're solving for me. For example, I love V-necks. And I go in there and I always find V-necks. Every color I want. I prefer black. But I always find V-necks and they fit me well. Like that's the same. It's the problem that I have with shirts. Now, why do I love that particular shop is because I go in there, pick a stack of V-necks that are gonna be like $7 a pop, super cheap, put them on, and then I feel good, I look good, and then it solves my problem.
Perfect. So you almost know where they are, you know how they look, you know the price. It's familiar, right?
Yeah.
So that's what happens with, for example, a brand that I use all the time is Gillette, right? And maybe I'm being biased because obviously Gillette is also owned by Procter Gamble. But it's a brand that I use all the time. And they come with 3, 4, 5, 6 blades, but the brand is still the same.
Right.
The best a man can get.
Yeah.
The best a man can get. And I know that any Gillette that I get, better than the big or the other brands, they're always going to be, for me, superior than the other ones because they have never let me down, right?
Yeah,
So they innovate on the products. You know, like let's try 3-blade, 4-blade, but the quality, the familiarity, the brand, the colors, they're always the same. And the slogan is always the same. You know, the best a man can get. They don't say like, you know, like Geico, 50 minutes or more can save you. No, 50%. What is it? 50 minutes or more can save 50% more in car insurance. They're actually trying to change it right now. I don't know if you saw the last commercials, but that thing has been there for years. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not. There's no company that can survive without innovation or marketing.
You just
But
gotta
you have
know
to
where
stay
to do
consistent.
it. Yes.
You have to stay consistent on your field. You know, you're not gonna be going from Gillette to trying to become the electric, you know, shaver. No, that's Brown. You know what I'm saying? Like, or H&M is not gonna try to sell you $100 V-neck because now they partner out with Gucci. You know, they're not gonna do that. Why? Because they're gonna lose their base that made them successful. They're gonna try to do different colors, maybe different styles, but you have to always stay consistent. And the brands that fail most of the time that are young or the entrepreneurs is because they try to do too many things at the end. And that's what I was trying to tell you.
I love it. Man, it's huge. It's huge. Well, you've dropped a whole ton of nuggets on us. And before we wrap it all up, if you were walking into yourself, you know, down the street when you were 17 years old, what would you tell that kid?
To chill the F down.
Chill the fuck down?
Yeah, you know, I'm very impatient by nature, and I think that you have seen that in my world, and I like it. I like my impatience. I've learned to love it. There's a level of energy that I know that a lot of people don't have, that I have, or a level of impatience that a lot of people don't have that I have, and sometimes it can be negative or bad, but I embrace it now. But when I was 17, I wanted to be 40 already. I wanted to be 30. I wanted to, you know, just see what was next versus really enjoying what was happening in that moment. You know what I'm saying?
So there's time.
There was time. And it's that idea of like, I think there's an element of a lot of high achievers of always looking for what's next versus acknowledging, recognizing our successes in the present moment.
Being in the moment.
You know, for example, I remember when I graduated from college, again, I'm not trying to make you feel bad about me or brag about it, but I graduated from college with honors. I don't remember ever celebrating. I was like, oh, good. I literally graduated, you know, December 18 of 2008. By December 28, I have moved from Phoenix in 10 days to Cincinnati, and I started working. There was no celebration in between, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I remember like ever being like, oh, look, I'm the only one in my family that has you know, this or
no break here.
Yeah, boom, boom, like, you know. So I feel that I was always like, okay, what's next? And the same thing when I moved to Panama or Mexico City. So 17-year-old guy, there's time. And now I'm trying to tell myself that, you know, because I believe that I'm in my prime. And I think that every man, every entrepreneur that is 30 something to whenever they're 50 something, I think all of us are in our prime.
Well, there's a big mixture of energy, youth, experience, and you know, you have assets, you have stuff that you didn't maybe most people didn't have in the 20s, and there's a lot more space for opportunity where, you know, at that age range. I mean, I love it, man, and it's with impatience. I mean, I want to piggyback off of that a little bit and say that, I mean, the degree of tenacity that you have for things, I think that may also be linked to the impatient side. Absolutely. So it's one of those, you know, like double-edged swords that I mean, maybe being a bit more patient would have been good to, you know, as far as enjoyable, but then again, would you have had that, you know, all that drive and all that, you know, tenacity to get shit done the way that you've done so far? Yeah, it's crazy.
But I think, man. But I think I think you have it too, right? I think you have it too, and I see it in you. I see it in your level of energy as well, your level of passion, that you are able to absorb so many projects, so many, you know, different tasks, and you know, I'm like, the only way how you can do it is because there's something in you, your emotion that is being
fire.
That fire that is driving you and that idea of where you want to be. And
If you're able to wake up, and this is how I see it. If I'm able to wake up in the morning because I'm excited, not because I'm concerned, or I'm trying to, or I'm worried. I mean, that's one way of waking up.
It can also be.
But if I'm able to wake up every morning because I'm excited and I want to get shit done, and I'm winning. I'm already winning right out of the. And I found my why, and I found my sense of meaning, right? Because that changes throughout time. Our purpose, or all of that it evolves just as we do. But every single day that you wake up with that fire inside of you, with that emotion, just kind of waiting to wake you up in the morning, and then you wake up with and you go from 0 to 100 right away after meditation. It's a good day. You're winning. Yeah. So, man, I love it, man. Thank you so much. So, before we head out again, give us a couple of resources. What would you recommend for oncoming entrepreneurs or people? It doesn't matter. Just entrepreneurs in general, as far as books or stuff for to grow as a person professionally. What would you?
Yeah, no, great question. And I'm not a believer in a secret recipe. I truly don't. But if I were to tell you books for anyone that I think will give skills that are beyond anything that I've read, is like, one is Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Mm-hmm. That's a book about being relatable to individuals and the power of understanding how to manage other people's emotions, mm-hmm. right? The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. That's more of a psychology or mentality mindset book that I think, once you are impeccable with your words, you don't make any fucking assumptions, you don't take anything personal, and you try to do the best every single day, which are the Four Agreements. And if you wake up with that mentality every day, you're going to be
super basic principles that really just decode.
And a third book that a lot of people, I agree. And a third book that a lot of people don't talk about is an actor by the name of Og Mandino, O.G. Mandino. The greatest salesman in the world. And the story is actually not it's an actual fictional story.
It's a fable, yeah.
But he gives you 10 principles that are super, super valuable.
I've always thought of that book being similar in the format and the way that it's kind of the context to The Alchemist.
I think so. I agree with you.
And I mean, the lessons in it they're completely different, but it's just a very, very different way, interesting way, and engaging way of teaching. So
I think the word is engaging. Yeah. I think the word is engaging. I agree with you, and I think it's just. But again, I'm not. It's keeping it for me. It's keeping it basic. I think there's power in simplicity. There's mm-hmm. power in staying consistent in something, and I try to declutter as much as I can of stuff that it's not making me. I used to try to read 100 books or listen to I don't know how many audiobooks, and right now I'm more like careful as to what I want to listen.
I'm cracking up right now because you said keeping it simplicity. There's power in simplicity. I tend to overthink a lot of shit, right? So I get carried away and I go into rabbit holes inside my head and everything. But I'm a huge Iron Man fan. However, when I'm thinking of simplicity, there's one part in the Marvel saga that I always think of. Like if I'm getting too overwhelmed or saturated, my head is just busy I'm cluttered. You remember that scene when the Hulk goes, Hulk smash, and then he just says those two things, Hulk smash, and he just starts smashing shit. There's no thinking, there's no nothing. It's just doing.
It's just doing.
And it's one thing that I'll repeat, to myself.
It's like go smash.
Smash. And it's just, it just kind of resets me back to taking action and doing stuff. But that popped into my head right now when you said that there's power in simplicity. There is huge power in simplicity. Oh, yeah. Man, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you so much. You have no idea. And you're like the long lost brother that you know, that I found here in Phoenix, and I value a relationship. So
I love you, man. Thanks for having me.
yeah, anytime, we got to do it again. Where do we find you?
Modesto Lopez 20, Instagram and Facebook, LinkedIn as well.
All right.
Modesto Lopez 20.
Well, there you have it, guys. So very, very basic principles to keep kicking ass throughout your entrepreneurial journey. You've heard it from somebody who's been in very, very different facets of life, and he's done well in all of them. So yeah, there's a lot of nuggets to be taken away from this. Stay tuned, stay focused. You got this. CEOPulse.com.